Friends blur. Let's go. So it's not to your shoulder. Attendees are rolling in. Brilliant. Morning, everyone. We'll just give everybody a few minutes to get here. Morning, Belinda.
Hello, hi. Thanks for setting this all up and the last minute swap from Sarah.
Yeah, thank you for the last minute swap from Sarah. Really appreciate it.
No worries.
How are you doing this morning? You all right?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Good.
Getting my organisation on my signature. Okay. Right, I'm going to turn my emails off as well now that I'm on. So I've got one less thing likely to trip up the internet connection. Can I just make sure the screen share is going to work as well?
Yeah, do give that a try.
Coming up all right.
Yeah, lovely.
Is that full screen for?
Yeah, I think so.
Great. Oh, I've lost it now. There we go. Okay. And I'm going to swap across to a couple of videos at some point. So I'll need to do that, optimize for video clip, won't I, when I share those?
Brilliant. You sound very organized.
Just got it wrong enough times before to want to get it right.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. I'll give everybody another couple of minutes to arrive, and then we've got a few housekeeping bits to do, and then we'll let you crack on.
Great. Will I be able to see anyone or just you two?
Just us.
Yeah.
And we'll probably turn our videos off when we're talking so that we don't distract from people looking at you.
And is there a Q&A or can people comment or anything?
Yes, so there's a chat function, and we will be keeping an eye on that so that we can sort of be ready with questions at the end. Do you want us to keep questions to the end, or do you want us to
don't mind if it makes sense for them to come in at that moment, then yeah, go for it and interrupt. And I can flex the end part of the presentation if there's lots of questions, focus on that, and if not, yeah.
Do you have the code slides ready to?
Do I have what, sorry?
Do you have the keywords? We're just wondering whether you've got that.
No, I didn't know anything about keywords, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, no problem at all. Tia, shall we just put them in the chat? Yeah, that's fine. We'll just pop those into the chat at the relevant time, so you don't have to worry.
Great, thank you.
I think we sent those to Sarah, but yeah.
Yeah, sorry, no, they didn't come across.
Yeah, right, let's see how many people we've got. 42. Yeah. How many are we expecting to win? Yeah. What time are we on? Well, it's not even 10 yet, so we'll wait until it's actually time before we start.
Can I do a quick test share of the video?
Yeah, I do.
Getting that sound?
Yes, I am. Well done. That's always tricky to share video and sound.
Okay. One less thing to stop share. That's fine. I click stop share, not exit meeting.
You see, go no.
There you go. I've done all the practice. Now it can't go.
Yeah. Sure, that'd be great. Number of participants is steadily increasing. Those that are just joining, we're just giving everybody a minute or two to arrive, and then we shall start. Okay, let's just make a start. Hopefully most people are here now. So good morning, everybody. Welcome to the PBS Good Practice Conference. We're really excited to be doing this today and sharing so much different knowledge and information with everyone. So I'll just start with some sort of basic housekeeping and a bit of information. So one of the first things to tell you about is that today is a free conference, but we're really hoping that some people might be kind enough to donate to the Newman Trust, which is a charity that's really close to our hearts. So I'm just going to see if I can share a little bit of information about that. Share screen. Sharing a bit as well. Okay, so the Newman Holiday Trust is a really fantastic charity that's completely funded by donations and run by volunteers who aren't being paid anything for their time. And they provide holidays across the whole country for children with disabilities and special needs, for children who often wouldn't be able to have a holiday otherwise. It's a really fantastic opportunity for the children to build confidence, make friends and try new things, and also gives a very much needed break to their families as well. So we're really hoping that people might be kind enough to give a little bit to the Newman Trust. If everybody that attended the conference today gave just £5–10, that would be enough to fund an entire holiday for 50 children to go and have a fantastic time. So it would really mean a lot. But even just, £5 can pay for a gift for a child. £10,000 would fund, like I say, a whole big holiday for a whole group of children. So we're going to put the link into the chat, but also I will share the QR code now that you can follow to give on the Just Giving page. Let me just do that quickly. So I'm just going to leave that there for a moment. If anybody wants to scan that QR code. Hang on, that doesn't look like the right one. Let me just share that again. I'm sure that one said it was called the Newman Trust, but it didn't seem to be the right one. Is it another one? Yeah, okay. Obviously put in the chat if that's not working for you, but hopefully that'll work. Is the link in the chat? Yeah, the link's in the chat as well. So yeah, we'd really appreciate it, and we'll probably just pop it up again at the end as well. If anyone wants to donate to that, that would be fantastic. Okay. So as I say, some housekeeping. We will pop 2 keywords in the chat at random points. Anybody that's collecting CEUs, there will be another QR code at the end and a link. It's really important when you follow that link, you need to put in there the keywords and your email address, and then you need to pay £8 for CEU. If you don't put your email address in and the keywords, you won't get the CEU. So that's really important that you do that. Anyone that just needs a certificate of attendance, there will be a different QR code. Again, it's £8. You don't need to put the keywords in, but you just need to put in Belinda's name, and that will get you a certificate of attendance. So I think that those are the main points, really. Anything else I need to say, Kate? No? Okay. So very excited to introduce you to Belinda Bradley, who is the head of best practice at McIntyre. Belinda, I don't know whether you want to introduce yourself a little bit, and then I shall hand over to you, and really looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Yeah, I will do. Thank you. So I know you were all expecting Sarah Kilby, our positive behaviour support and complex support lead. Sarah's sadly on compassionate leave this week, so I've stepped in. So I head our best practice team in McIntyre, and that includes our positive behaviour support and complex support team. I've been with McIntyre for over 10 years now, and have a long background with positive behaviour support in McIntyre. So yeah, hopefully I will do Sarah's presentation justice for her. So I've got a couple of slides, so those up. Is everyone able to see that?
I can, Belinda, yep, so hopefully we're all good.
Great. Okay. So I understand there's a chat function. So if people have, and a Q&A function. So if people have got questions, do put them up. It's a little bit strange not being able to see everybody's faces while we do this, but do interact and ask questions along the way. And I think I'm going to have a bit of help with spotting when those questions come in. So that's great. So I've got half of my screen covered up, but are you seeing that in full? Haven't got any blocks over that. Right, great. Okay. So Sarah chose this picture to illustrate the start of the presentation. We've been talking together about what to include for a little while. And we were talking about the journey that McIntyre have been on with positive behaviour support. And as I say, Sarah chose this image because it illustrates a journey without really a clear ending. And we decided it would be important to start this presentation by talking a little bit about that history and that journey that McIntyre have been on, to give some context as to why we're currently focused on compassion first positive behaviour support. So McIntyre's first positive behaviour support policy was introduced in 2014. So we're about 10 years along our journey, which is really exciting for me. And there've been so many twists and turns and so much learning along that journey. And you know, when I look back to some of the sort of highlights and so on, 2016, I've got it here with me. We were awarded the Build Positive Behaviour Support Leadership Award. And that's a really good reminder for me that back then we were working to the best of what we knew then. Because sometimes we look back and think, gosh, why did we decide to do things in that way? And I think it's important when you're on a journey to realise the information that you have at the time, and to realise that what you think's good right now might not be what we think is good in another 10 years' time. So the literature at the time when we first started implementing PBS in McIntyre said that PBS needed to be organisation-wide. So we did that. When we launched our PBS policy, we launched it to our area and senior managers right across McIntyre and gave them a bit of a toolkit to implement PBS themselves in their local areas. And that was generally effective. It definitely had an impact, but it also created some barriers and some problems along the way. So some examples of that were some teams who really just, or some leaders, local leaders who just saw tier one. So really oversimplified understanding of what PBS is and what PBS could be. So a lot of, well, we already do that responses. And then in other areas, almost the other end of the scale, we had we don't need PBS here. So although we were trying to go organisation wide, we still had that blockage, if you like, that if an area didn't recognise themselves as supporting people with challenging behaviour, then thinking that PBS wasn't for them, and so missing out really on the universal benefits of tier one PBS. With lots of other learning along the way, along our journey. So another example, the Valuing People paper at the time said that every PBS plan should be functionally based. So we took that quite literally and made a list of all the people across McIntyre who had a PBS plan or needed a PBS plan, and went through and made sure that a functional assessment happened for every person. And with the skill sets that we had at the time, a lot of those functional assessments were the good old BBAT. And what we realised was all these BBATs sitting on shelves in different locations, but aversive things were still happening to people. So a kind of realization that functional assessment doesn't automatically make kind support. A few other realizations on the way. So realized that having a PBS plan shouldn't be a replacement for having a good support plan and having good support. And there absolutely were times where the PBS team were being called in because somebody's support simply wasn't good. And PBS was being seen as the fix rather than really looking at what was going on for the person and the environment around the person. We were really heavily supported by Build, and particularly the Build PBS coaches course, definitely at the start of the journey. So I was on the first ever Build PBS coaches course, and those 4 days for me personally were incredibly transformational and really filled with learning, and really were a strong kick along the start of our PBS journey. And we then decided to roll out PBS coaches to people right across the organisation. We thought we'd have loads of PBS coaches everywhere making PBS happen. And the first couple of groups that we organised went really well. Those were the people who then got together and really created positive behaviour support in McIntyre. And the course really gave us all that sort of academic understanding of what good PBS could look like. We then started using the Build PBS course, coaches course, more to try to solve the problem of needing practice leaders across the organisation, and that's where it started to fall down, and we realised that actually it wasn't the right course for developing practice leaders. It was really useful in directing good practice people who were already good practice leaders, but it didn't really help us address the problem of not having enough of those good practice leaders already. So that was a few of our bumps and twists and turns and learnings along the way. And outside of McIntyre, across those 10 years, PBS has grown and changed hugely as well. And whether because of Winterbourne View perhaps, but it certainly seems to me that there's been an awful lot of investment in research around positive behaviour support, and actually to the point where it's really difficult to see, and not so much investment in research around what good learning disability support looks like. And so PBS has kind of filled the gap in many ways there. And so it's really difficult to see where good support ends and PBS begins. And around the time when I was kind of grappling with, so at that time my job title was Head of Positive Behaviour Support, and I was kind of grappling with, well, how do I have more influence over good support rather than just intervention when things are going wrong for a person. And at around about that time, I was asked by our McIntyre directors to broaden my role from head of PBS to head of best practice. And I saw that as a real opportunity to be able to work in that space, that tier 1 space, if you like. And since then, we've really drawn very heavily from the learning around tier 1 PBS across McIntyre, in developing our organisation-wide best practice. And I'll touch on and share a few examples of that later. So now on our journey, so just as we're heading towards the bush in the top left there, the place where we are right now, we have a fabulous PBS and complex support team across McIntyre, a team that continues to grow as our support for people who need higher tier input grows, and as our McIntyre journey continues. And that team, what we've realized is that having those full-time, highly skilled, highly trained PBS professionals, having less of those people has actually proven a lot more successful than having a lot of people with a little bit of knowledge about PBS. And that team together came up with the label Compassion First PBS that we're going to talk about today. And I'll do my best to explain why they came up with that approach, but also just want to acknowledge the fact that we're open to the potential that although Compassion First PBS feels like our best stab at getting PBS right in McIntyre today, round the next bend on that journey, who knows what the right answers will be. So Sarah, myself, and one of our colleagues, Kat, were lucky enough to hear Tony Osgood speaking a few weeks ago at an event. And he made a prediction that in 20 years' time, we won't call it PBS, we'll just call it support. And I think we've been having that conversation for a while now in McIntyre around the value and the limitations of the label PBS, and maybe we'll move to somewhere different in less than the 20 years that Tony Osgood is forecasting. We will see. So, a little brief intro. So Sarah, you were promised in the brief for this session a commitment, a case study, and a call to action. So I'm going to very slightly let you down on the case study, simply because we've been doing a lot of thinking recently in McIntyre around language, and the penny's dropped that you can't have a case study without having a case. And in McIntyre, we don't work with cases, we work with people. So in place of a case study, Dom is going to share some of his experiences of positive behaviour support. Dom, when Dom's presented his experiences himself a couple of times at conferences face to face, but he didn't feel comfortable to do his presentation live today virtually. I can understand his concerns. It's really strange talking to a computer without the same feedback. So Dom has opted, instead of being here with me today to present, to put a video together to share his experience in that way. So I'm going to swap across to the video in just a moment. The video starts with an introduction from Sarah Kilby. So lucky for me, as she hasn't made it today, that she will still get a voice and get a say through the video in a moment. And the video, as well as sharing some of Dom's experience, will also introduce you to the idea of the commitment part of today's presentation. And I'll share a little bit more about that afterwards. I do also want to apologise. The video has subtitles and there's a couple of errors in the subtitles. So if the subtitle doesn't make sense, apologies. There's also a couple of times where in the video where it looks like Dom's reading. He is reading. So one of Dom's ambitions in life is to be an actor. So the opportunity for him to be filmed with a proper cue system was an opportunity that couldn't be missed. So there are times where he's a little bit less natural and he is reading, just to reassure you and let you know that Dom did write the content that he's then reading from, so they are his own words. Okay, I'm going to come out of this and hopefully screen share the video. Susie, while I do that, can I just check that everything's coming through to everybody all right at the moment?
It's certainly fine for me and Kate. We haven't had any feedback from anyone else that it isn't.
Great. Okay. Video coming.
Yeah, that looks fine. I can hear it. Yeah, brilliant.
A core behaviour in McIntyre's DNA is to show compassion.
Sorry, I'm just going to pause that because it's quite quiet my end. If I can, oh no, I am up full. Was that loud enough for everyone to hear?
It's a little quiet, but I think it's okay. Yeah, I think it should be fine.
So yeah, you can turn your own volumes up, I guess, if it's too quiet for you.
A core behaviour in McIntyre's DNA is to show compassion, and as a specialist PBS and complex support team, we wanted a clear way of sharing what we mean by putting compassion first as part of our positive behaviour support approach. We often experience sympathy as feelings linked with sorrow and sadness. However, whilst these emotions are powerful, they often do not result in making us act with deliberate intent to make things better. Compassion, however, can be viewed and experienced very differently. Acting with compassion is when the feeling toward another motivates us to understand someone, motivates us to help them feel safe, motivates us to empower others, and motivates us to make a difference, and it motivates us to change what we do and what we know. Working compassionately also means taking action to alleviate the suffering or distress of another person, meaning that in our positive behaviour support approach, we commit to working in a way that is trauma assumed, ensuring we are always sensitive to the probability that if left unchecked, our actions may result in trauma or may re-trigger past trauma. Choosing to put compassion first means that we work with intelligent kindness, building trust, rapport, and a feeling of emotional and physical safety always. We always seek to understand a person's past and current experiences and how it feels for them. We listen, observe, and be open and willing to change our support as a result. We let go of judgments. We need to understand who a person wants to be, not who other people or who society thinks they should be. We need to be courageous, take action to do what is right. We value the learning we take from behavioural science, but never use this knowledge in a way that dismisses people's choices or their experiences.
Hello, my name's Dom. I'm Susan McIntyre in my own home. I have a paid job with the PBS team. I have a small team and I also get to spend all the time with my
Rapport and a feeling of emotional and
thought I was naughty. Hello, my name's Dom. I'm Susan McIntyre in my own home. I have a paid job with the PBS team. I have a small team and I also get to spend all the time with my dad, but also a lot of time with things doing I love. My hopes and dreams in the future always had to be acted on stage and TV. Things that important to me are my dad feeling safe and fun. It has always been my dad and my mum around, but my dad and I have always been together. It has not been easy. I'm been through a lot of really tough, unhappy at school. No one knew I was autistic or had a learning disability. They just thought I was naughty, so I kept running away and getting into trouble, which meant my dad would come and take me home. Soon I spent at PRU, which was a place with child behaviours badly. They They didn't treat me well. They restrained me and it hurt me so badly. My dad had to complain. I got removed and then I spent a lot of difficult time at school, lots of problems with my mental health. I was diagnosed with depression and ADHD and Tourette's, but the pills didn't work. I was still unhappy. I did feel safe only when I felt safe when I told my dad. The world was scary and I was scared. As I got older, I started to hurt myself so bad I had to go to mental health hospital. That was the worst thing in my life.
In hospital, Dom was repeatedly restrained, physically and chemically, and refused permission to see his dad. He left with a diagnosis of a personality disorder, but still no one knew he was autistic or had a learning disability. Until at the age of 23, after leaving hospital, someone finally realised.
Lockdown was hard on me and my dad, and I had to go away and it was so bad I could not stay with McIntyre in the beginning. Lockdown was getting below me. Suddenly, at first I went to quiet places where it was safe. My dad spent time with the PBS team, understanding my past and my present. I got home and I got to know McIntyre helped me to decorate and start to spend time there. They made me feel safe with the team. They wanted me to understand why I had to climb in ways, what important for me and what wanted to be. We are on a journey that has been sometimes been rocky, as in the past still affects me, but not as it understands my past and never does anything to trigger that. When I had difficult times, even when I've been facing prison or going back to mental hospital, McIntyre have stood by me. They have never judged me, they just listened to help me. I still got excluded, anxious and worried, but no, my staff understand. They help me to feel safe at all times. I used to tell everyone I meant that I was most authentic person to work in E&E. So that tells people that I thought McIntyre got a job working with NHS. I am a actor and I have friends. That is who I am. The person that people are proud of is me. PBS to me means everything. Understand what I've been through and why I act the way I do. That means I don't have to find words to tell them and they just know. PBS means things safe and myself with my staff. They know what do I need. What important for me is we just laugh all the time and just have fun. PBS means learning skills help me to stay calm. PBS means knowing people and will help me when I feel unhappy or worried. PBS means I'm in a good future and not in the mental hospital or in prison.
Belinda, you seem to be on mute now. At least I can't hear you.
Thank you. Apologies, I muted myself to remove any background noise. Oh, sorry, I can see there's a not very clear on the video. My apologies. I hope it was clear enough for most people, and the link can be shared absolutely, and the recording. Thank you. Thank you for the well done to Dom. Yeah. So just to tell you a little bit more about Dom and the PBS support that surrounds Dom to help him be thriving as much as you can see he is at the moments when he's being that person that he knows he and others are really proud of. It's a really, everybody's PBS framework in McIntyre is really unique to them. It's really person-centered. And it's that approach that makes the difference, along with the collaboration with other people involved in that, in each person's life. And for Dom, you could see his dad really important, but others have also been really important in that journey. The hospital were really important at that time when he was finding ways to get himself admitted as often as possible, for example. So some of Dom's plan has been focused around helping him to build what we call in McIntyre now a gloriously ordinary life. So helping him really understand what it means to have his own flat, to live that more and more independent life, to have the things that are important in his life, and to grow purpose, to take on job roles, and to feel valued for who he is as a person. I'll talk a little bit more in a bit about how we frame that gloriously ordinary life support in McIntyre. Dom's plan also included accessing therapy and learning coping skills, and that hadn't previously been successful for Dom. He hadn't engaged with therapy support previously. So that was overcome by working collaboratively with a DBT therapist. So Dom's team being able to be involved in the therapy alongside Dom has been absolutely essential for him being able to engage and learn, and then have the support to put his new skills into action when he needed them. So Dom, pretty quickly after that started picking up the phone independently to the members of his team that he felt safest with when he knew that things were spiraling downhill for himself, and allowing them to support him to practice those mindfulness exercises that he'd been learning with his DBT therapist. And now Dom actually teaches others mindfulness. If Dom was here, he has a conference favorite that he always teaches other people on conferences, one of his favorite mindfulness exercises. And I don't actually have a film of him teaching that, but I do have a film of him. It's less than 30 seconds of him teaching some of his other favorite mindfulness skills. So I'm just going to share that just so you can see Dom at his best, loving life. Oh, there's the sound gone.
Hi everyone, my name's Dominic Sher, and these are my mindfulness skills. Number 1, deep breaths. Number 2, positive thoughts. Number 3, take your time. After these skills, you may feel relaxed.
Thanks, Dom. I needed that before starting today. Oh, sorry. Here we go. Great. Okay. So Dom's experience, hopefully, and seeing Dom at far end for me of the skills learning spectrum is being able to teach others. So seeing Dom having taken his learning right the way through to that end. So I just want to move on now to try to answer the question that I posed earlier around why the McIntyre PBS and complex support team have decided to use compassion first as their current sort of heading for their approach. Okay, so the team did a lot of reflecting around the responsibilities that come with having the skills to be able to help somebody change their behaviours. And these were the responsibilities that they identified. So a responsibility not to use punishment, sanction, or negative experiences that cause distress to achieve changes in behaviour, such as removing a favourite item or denying social contact as a result of behaviour. And I think the examples are just so important in this, because everybody would say, well, of course we don't use punishments and negative experiences. But how many times have you seen people removing a favourite item or denying, you know, that interaction or that activity, you know, those really subtle punishments. So this is shared through all our training in McIntyre as well. So the responsibility that we will not try to teach a person to behave in a way that feels harmful or uncomfortable to them, in a way that tries to hide their true individual self, such as insisting on teaching eye contact for an individual who is autistic, or reducing actions that help a person soothe and calm just because it is perhaps not seen as normal. So again, we felt it really important to be very explicit within that positive behaviour support team across the organisation, and in the way we communicate externally about what is not okay with compassion first positive behaviour support. And the responsibility not to make assumptions about why a behaviour is important for a person, and try to take this away without teaching them an alternative, but perhaps safer way to get their need met. So again, a commitment to properly understanding the person's behaviour before taking action. And then the commitments. So the commitments were shared within the film. It's the second keyword coming in rather than a question. Sorry, I was just checking that. So this is the commitment that our positive behaviour support team now work. So it's a commitment to working compassionately. And that means working in a way that is trauma assumed. And I know that was mentioned in the video. So assuming that our actions could cause distress, rather than waiting to know that a person has experienced trauma before having that awareness. And the team have identified that putting compassion first means working with intelligent kindness. So really investing in those relationships and helping people to feel safe. Understanding a person's experiences, so how it feels for them. Listening, observing, so really seeing what's going on and being willing to change as a result. Letting go of judgments. So this was mentioned in the film, that letting go of what society thinks is okay, and being courageous. So being courageous links into making sure that we always do the right thing with the knowledge that we have. So there's your commitment. I just wanted to now talk a little bit more about our organisation-wide approach to Tier 1, and pick up on where the focus on compassion has really come from. So Sarah mentioned in the film that compassion is one of McIntyre's founding values. And McIntyre, for as long as I think anyone who's in McIntyre can remember, has called our practical values in action our DNA. And this is our current DNA image and statement here, and you'll notice compassion up in the top arm there. And the statements within our DNA help us to put our values into action. So to really explain what that looks like when you're doing it, rather than just emotionally committing towards it, to those values. And this, in effect, our DNA is the core of Tier 1 PBS for McIntyre. And so certainly after COVID, we've spent a lot of time really focusing on foundations and on values. I'm sure others will have observed it as well, that the intensity of focus on, cleaning rotas, keeping people safe and so on, really had a detrimental effect on a focus on values during the pandemic. So we've focused more heavily since the pandemic on helping everybody to really understand and put our values into action. And one of the things we've created to support with that is something we call our DNA checklist. And our DNA checklist draws heavily from the Capable Environments framework, but it organizes capable environments underneath the different strands of our DNA. And so it really explicitly makes that link between the way we do things in McIntyre, between good support and Tier 1 PBS capable environments. The checklist was also, and this DNA image you can see here, were also co-designed, co-produced, and they're designed in a way that everyone can be involved in doing those checks. So really helping ensure everyone has that voice and can be listened to. Another key McIntyre document that has drawn from positive behaviour support but fits right across our organisation is our quality framework. So this is the summary image of our quality framework, and it places our DNA that you've just seen front and centre in terms of our values approach. I just wonder if anybody can take a guess at where the inspiration from our quality framework might have come from. Anyone got any guesses you want to put in the chat? Does it look familiar? See anything coming in? Okay. Hopefully the penny will drop as soon as I click on. Oh yeah, here we go. Somebody's got it. Oh, biopsychosocial. That's an element of it. It's not quite split that clearly. So this image, if you go back to or for the first time too, if you haven't before, the State of the Nation PBS report from 2022. Sarah's illustrated this here with cogs rather than the Venn diagram picture that's actually in that paper, and that we've adapted. So that paper, a really seminal paper in terms of defining PBS. So big thank you to Nick Gore and the many other people who contributed to that new definition, because that really then helped us see how we could lay out our broader quality framework borrowing from this. So the rights and the values, that's where our DNA sits. The processes and strategy, so the systems approach. So within our quality framework, we identify that the quality systems, the processes are different depending on what part of McIntyre it's in, who the regulators are, whether we're talking about children or adults, the kind of support that's offered, the kind of complexities of support, and all sorts of different systems and processes can link into there, whether that's around active support or some of the more specific processes that are needed once you move into higher tier positive behaviour support. And then this cog in the Gore et al. Paper is around having a specialist understanding of behaviour, needs and experiences. So really that understanding behaviour, that science element here. And what we've done in our quality framework is to broaden that out to an understanding of people. You know, what makes people tick? So when we're thinking about our staff, what motivates staff to deliver really good quality support that helps people to have those gloriously ordinary lives? And we believe that if we bring that understanding of people right across everything that we do, that is going to strengthen our ability to achieve the right outcomes for people who draw on our support. And then one of the other elements that we have borrowed from PBS but used right across our organisation is our leadership DNA. So our leadership DNA borrows a lot of inspiration from practice leadership. And it's the way that we explain to leaders in McIntyre, whatever job title they might have, the importance of being a practice leader. So being visible, showing the way, listening, observing, you know, within the details of this, that being able to give feedback and having it all around bringing our DNA to life. We also drew on ideas from other areas as well as PBS in the development of this. So particularly around relational leadership, appreciative leadership, compassionate leadership, and transformational leadership. So pulling all those kind of, I guess, pulling the values into practice leadership much more strongly, much more loudly. And we're beginning to use this now and beginning to think about how to measure the impacts of asking our leaders to lead in this way. So what does this look like within our PBS framework? So this is the sort of summary, I guess, of the McIntyre Compassion First Positive Behaviour Support Framework. There'll be lots of bits in here that are familiar from other PBS frameworks. We use the sort of familiar colorings that some of the traffic light models use, but we've learned to be really careful with our language. So years ago, we did some training that referred to positive and proactive support as baseline support. And what we found was that people started talking about people being in baseline. And I don't know about you, but I don't talk about myself being in baseline. And it felt really uncomfortable. So we tried to move away from that and moved to talking to using traffic lights. And we then had people talking about a person being in their green zone. And again, don't know about you, but I never tell my husband that I'm in my green zone today. So language, it feels like this ongoing journey of trying to make language as human as possible. And we're really keen in McIntyre on gloriously ordinary lives. If you haven't come across gloriously ordinary lives, then Google it. So there are 5 gloriously ordinary lives test, and test 2 is this: would I use that language in my kitchen with my family, or at the cafe or pub with my mates? So this has been really helping us, and it's part of what's challenging us around the acronym PBS, because you wouldn't talk about, I need some PBS support right now in the cafe or the pub or in your kitchen. We also realised that you wouldn't talk about being in crisis in those scenarios. And so our red zone is now keeping safe support. So this isn't perfect. We're on a journey of using this test and thinking about how we use language. And it will be a journey that keeps winding. But this test is just so helpful. So in terms of putting this framework into action, So all approaches are rooted in our DNA foundations. This is our ethical and human rights filter. So it's explicit that our DNA underpins all of this framework. Our leadership DNA, which I just showed you, drives practice leadership. Specialist behaviour and practice leadership support is founded on concepts and principles of behavioural science. This prevents assumptions and leads to better outcomes. So we're clear where the science comes in. And our operational systems purposely support the quality of our approach. So there's the Compassion First framework. Just to tell you a tiny bit more about it before we come to questions. We use a similar tiered model that you'd probably be familiar with, but we talk about tier 1 as first steps in PBS, and in the training that goes with this, the links are made very explicitly to our DNA checklist. So to really what good support looks like and how that good support addresses first steps in PBS. Our team offer higher tier support. I'm not going to go through this list, but if you just glance at it, I'm sure that there'll be a lot of things that look really similar to your own offers or offers you're aware of in terms of the stuff that is available. What I guess I'd like you to reflect on is that if you see all of this through the lens of our DNA and our Compassion First PBS commitments, can you see how some of this would look different or be brought in and utilised in different ways? So the skills are the same, but the lens is what the team have tried to do is make that lens of compassion absolutely as strong as possible and completely unavoidable. I have got a couple more slides that I can share, but I can also skip through to take questions and a little call to action at the end. That was part of Sarah's promise, was to have a call to action. I just wonder if there are any questions, if anyone wants to pop any in.
We've had a couple of comments, Belinda.
Yeah, I see one in the chat from Debbie, thank you, about your experience with your daughter. Yeah, I can see it's resonating for you.
And there was a comment from Gary Aldridge a bit higher up in the chat too. Do you want me to read that, or can you find it?
Find it. Oh no, I can't see that actually. That would be helpful, thank you.
Yeah, just find it. So Gary was saying he'd be keen to have an opportunity to link in with you and your colleagues to discuss your approach further. At Certitude, we have a small team of practitioners and are about to embark to a more localised approach, supporting development of practice and skills locally rather than increasing our central resources. So that really fits with what you were saying about having a small specialised team rather than trying to skill everyone up. So similar to yourselves, as you said. So really keen to learn from your experiences at McIntyre. And then he's given some details there about himself. But I share Gary's interest really in how you found that balance between how many people to train up and how to make that work best.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, hopefully I made the point that it's a journey, that it's a continual learning balance. So we're definitely not promising that we're getting that right. Gary, absolutely, we'd love that. The Gloriously Ordinary Lives link that I shared is something that we've learned through a network called Social Care Futures, and I know, Gary, that you're involved in that, and we've got some really good shared learning there. So yeah, let's definitely extend that out. I know Sarah, our PBS lead, once she's back from Compassionate Lead, will be really, really keen to connect with you. That's a couple more questions coming in. Thank you, Laura, agreeing with the importance of language. Thanks, Gary. Yeah, Vivian, we need to support our GPs to understand what PBS care plans are and how to use in everyday practice. Absolutely. I think one of the reasons that our team have put quite a lot of work into trying to explain what PBS looks like in McIntyre is because it doesn't always look like this. A lot of things are called PBS that aren't what we would see as good practice, and I'm sure most of you as well, or all of you as well. Shauna, interested in learning more about practice leadership? Absolutely, do get in touch. I'm actually doing a master's dissertation at the moment, trying to understand a bit more about what we're doing. So I'm properly geeking out on that and happy to talk. Interesting question there. Sorry, it just popped out of sight. As an organisation, do you find similar barriers to what you experienced in 2014 are still present, or have you experienced new challenges? Definitely the challenges have changed, and definitely some of the people who didn't come on board or didn't really understand what we were trying to achieve back in 2014 have at different times along the journey suddenly had aha moments and become best friends of the PBS team and really gone on their own journeys. And that's been different for each person and each set of barriers. Definitely new challenges. I'm sure everybody is finding new challenges, particularly in the post-COVID world and the austerity world, in terms of being able to achieve, being able to get resources in the right place and achieve the things that matter most. Great, thank you everybody. So I'm gonna, sorry, I do have a few slides to skip through. Sarah had a few PBS is and is not, which I can absolutely send the slides, or PBS UK can hopefully send the slides out. Sorry, I'm making a promise on your behalf for you to look through. But just wanted to finish off with a call to action. So just to put that road back up again and ask you really to take a moment to think about your own PBS journeys, where they might be going next. Have a reflection on where does compassion sit in your approach to PBS. And I'm going to quote Tony Osgood again. So Tony talks about the different letters of PBS and the fact that you see each of these in different interpretations of PBS, the different letters can be bigger. So you might see a big P, a small B and S, or a really big B, you know, the science, the focus is the real focus, and the P, the positive, is slightly quieter. So I guess my call to action for you is, please try to make your P's and your B's as big as possible, and think about how you can make compassion more explicitly part of your PBS offer. And please share those journeys. We'd absolutely love to connect with, thank you, Gary, for offering that. We'd love to connect with others as well. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Belinda. That was absolutely fantastic. Really, really interesting and enjoyable presentation, and so, yeah, interesting to hear about your journey over those years. It was really good. And please say thank you to Dom for his contribution as well. It was brilliant that he was able to have that video today. I don't know if we've got time for one last question. I think perhaps not. So I'm going to
see there are a few more, and I'd just say do get in touch. I've actually, very cheekily, the last slide has Sarah's contact, even though she's on compassionate leave. I didn't get around to changing it. Mine is belinda.bradley@McIntyre Charity. So contact either or both of us, and we'd love to carry on the conversations.
Thank you so much, Belinda. That's really helpful. So just a reminder, everybody needs to make sure if they're collecting CEUs that they have the 2 keywords that they should be able to go back and find in the chat if you can't remember them. And I'm now going to put up the 2 different QR codes. There's one for collecting CEUs. There will be a little note section when you get to the website. It's really important that you put in there the 2 keywords, that you pay £8, and that you put your email address. That's really important. We can't send it to you if you don't have your email address in there. If you're collecting certificates of attendance, you need to put Belinda's name in and your email address as well, and also pay the £8. So lots of people putting things in the chat. Yeah, Belinda, perhaps we could put your email address in the chat. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
There's a question about, if you're a practicing member, do you need the CEU or attendance? I'd say, given that it's the same price, you might as well go for the CEU.
Same,
It's
they'll
the
get sent
same.
a Google form, which will, if they've got the like certification details that need to go in, type those in. If they don't need that, then they just
Yeah.
need to fill that box.
Yeah, so that was Tia just saying that if you have, you know, certification details that need to go in, you can put them in. If you don't, you don't. So it should be fine either way. Brilliant. Okay, so let me just share those QR codes. And
My email address has just gone in the chat as well.
fantastic. Thank you, Belinda. I'm going to stop you sharing, Belinda. Hope that's okay.
Yeah, not to worry.
Okay, and then let's get the right QR code. So this should be the CEU one. So I'll leave that up for a moment. See, there's a website there as well, if that's easier. No, QR codes are, some people love them, some people don't. Okay, I'm going to share the other one because I'm conscious that we're at 11 o'clock, but if anybody is panicking and wants me to put it back up again, I can do that. Okay. This is the one for certificate of attendance.
It's the same QR code. Same.
Ah, okay,
Yeah.
it's the same QR code, so I don't actually need to do that twice.
No.
That's fine. Okay. Okay, I think that's all.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you for all the lovely feedback and thanks for the opportunity.
Thank
Have
you
a
so
good one.
much, Belinda. I really appreciate stepping in quite short notice too. It's
No
fantastic.
worries. Have a great rest of the day.
You too. Thank you. Oh, we have a raised hand. Shona, I don't know whether you want to, I think we can go to you actually. Shona, I think if you pop something in the chat, that's easiest.
Someone's just asked what the keywords are again, so I've just put them in there.
Yeah.
That might be what someone was asking.
Yeah, I'll just share that again, Ebony.
I'm going to excuse myself again.
Yes.
Thanks, Dom. Thanks,
Thank you very
everybody.
much.
Bye.
Bye. I think I can also pop a link in for you. So we'll see if that works easier for you. Okay, so I'll pop the link in the chat.
Yeah.
Let me just share because I think I'm sharing my whole screen now.
If not, she should find you and the participants and find you.
Okay. What's it gone?
Very much.
Let's stop sharing.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
You should be able to use the link. Yes, you need to pay for each presentation that you want a CEU or certificate for. So those would be paid separately. I'd say if you're not sure whether to put the name of the presentation or the keywords in, it depends whether you want a CEU or certificate of attendance. Just put both in. Yeah, I was going to say, just put it all in and then you're covered. You're all very welcome. Okay. Thanks, everybody. See you at the next one.
Bye.